Elfin Forest never really reopened. On paper, the park had been operational since 1997. Its trails mapped, its campsites listed, its brochures distributed every summer. But anyone who worked long enough for the Department of Forestry understood one thing. The forest was only pretending to be open. Something had happened the night before the barricades first went up, something no news outlet ever reported. And whatever stepped out of the tree line that night had never gone back in. There was always a blacked-out section on the official ranger maps. Thick marker ink, layered, scratched, redrawn, covering a portion of the northern ridge as if the paper itself had tried to forget what was underneath. It wasn't for national security. It wasn't for wildlife protection. It was for the people who went in and came out, not human in the way they had been. And tonight, two new night shift rangers, Evan Hale and Marisol Vega, were standing at the threshold of that secret. A cold wind moved through the pines like a deliberate breath, exhaling, heavy, as if the whole forest was waiting for someone to say its name. Mist rolled down from the ridge in slow white curls, dense like smoke from a fire that never fully died. Cabin 3, the night station, sat hunched at the edge of the trail, weather-beaten wood, one flickering porch light, and a radio antenna that groaned every time the wind shifted. The door was unlocked. Carl Bauer, the old ranger who'd worked here since before the closure, insisted it stay that way. "Locked doors don't stop what's here," he had told them during orientation, voice flat, eyes refusing to meet theirs. Evan didn't know if Carl was joking. Mari was pretty sure he wasn't. They'd both taken this job because they needed the money. Evan's mother had been in and out of the hospital for months. Mary was trying to outrun a trail of failures she never admitted aloud. Neither of them wanted the night shift. But when the supervisor asked for volunteers and every veteran ranger looked away at the same time, the two newest recruits found themselves raising their hands. Now they stood in front of Cabin 3, bags slung over their shoulders as the forest closed in around them. The first thing Evan noticed was the quiet, not the usual nighttime hush of animals and wind, but a deeper silence, wrong in a way he couldn't put words to. It felt as if the trees were listening. "You ready?" Mari asked. Evan exhaled sharply. Not even a little. She gave him a half smile. "Great. We're already doing better than the last pair." Evan frowned. "What last pair?" Mari blinked. "Carl didn't tell you?" Before Evan could ask more, the porch light flickered again. 3 rapid pulses, followed by darkness. Then it steadied. Evan swallowed. "Faulty wiring?" "Sure," Mari said, though she didn't sound convinced. They stepped inside. Cabin 3 smelled like cedar, coffee grounds, and old secrets. A desk sat against the far wall with 2 monitors, a flickering map interface, and a live feed from the trail cameras. A large binder labeled 1997 Incident, locked, lay on the top shelf, held shut by a strip of duct tape. No one had dared remove it. Carl stood by the counter filling out forms with a dull pencil. His beard was silver, his posture slouched, but his eyes, pale, sharp, weathered, followed every movement the 2 rookies made. "You're late," he said. "We're actually 5 minutes early," Evan replied. Carl didn't look up. "For the night shift, that's late." Mari exchanged a look with Evan. Carl finally set the pencil down. "Listen to me. There are rules here, unwritten. You follow them, or you don't come back the same." He waited. They stayed quiet. "Rule 1, Carl said. Don't go near the northern ridge after midnight." Mari glanced at the map. "The blacked-out area?" Carl didn't confirm it. He didn't deny it. "Rule 2, if you hear someone calling your name from outside the cabin, you don't answer." Evan let out a short laugh. "You're messing with us." Carl's stare didn't break. "Does it look like I am?" The laugh died in Evan's throat. "Rule 3, Carl continued. "If Cabin 12 shows lights on, you notify me. You do not go there." Mari frowned. "I thought Cabin 12 was condemned." Carl hesitated. It was. Those 2 words were wrong. They hung in the air like a memory trying to surface. "Anything else we should know?" Evan asked carefully. Carl opened his mouth as if to say something, some loaded truth he'd carried too long, but then stopped. "Radio me every hour," he said instead. "When the clock hits 3:14 a.m., you stay inside no matter what you see." Why 3:14? Carl looked toward the window, toward the trees shifting in the mist, because that's when the forest wakes up. He grabbed his jacket and hat. "You're alone from midnight till dawn," he added. "I don't work nights anymore." Mari raised a brow. "Why?" Carl's hand paused on the doorknob. His silence was the answer. He stepped out, pulling the door shut behind him. The forest swallowed his footsteps quickly, as if reclaiming him. For a long moment, neither Evan nor Mari moved. "Well," Mari said softly, "that wasn't ominous at all." Evan dropped his bag onto the desk. "Do you think he's just screwing with us?" "No," Mari said. "No, he's not." They exchanged a quiet look, one that acknowledged the same sensation creeping up each of their spines. Something in this forest was wrong, and it knew they had arrived. Midnight came fast. Evan signed the logbook while Mari scanned the camera feeds. The monitors hummed with a faint vibration. Outside, the mist thickened until the window reflected only white. "You ever think about leaving?" Mari asked casually. "Already, it's been 30 minutes. "It's not too late to quit. We could walk out, drive home." "And do what?" Evan asked. "Live off student debt and regret?" Mari didn't smile. "Sometimes that's better than staying somewhere you shouldn't." Before Evan could answer, one of the monitors glitched, a quick line of static across camera 6. Mari leaned closer. "Did you see?" The screen flickered again. This time, it wasn't static. It was a silhouette, a tall one, standing motionless between the trees. Mari froze. "Is that a person?" Evan stared. "The trail should be empty at this hour." The silhouette didn't move, didn't shift, didn't sway with the wind. It was too still. "Should we radio Carl?" Mari asked. Evan hesitated. Carl had not been the comforting type, but the silhouette solved the decision for them. It moved, not forward, not back. Just a sharp, unnatural tilt of the head, like a marionette whose strings had been yanked. Mari's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, hell no!" Then the figure stepped behind a tree. Gone. Evan quickly rewinded the clip. The tree was the same. Nothing stood behind it. Nothing came out from the other side. But the recording? It clearly showed a person stepping behind it. A person who did not come out. "Okay," Mari breathed, pulse hammering. "That tree is not big enough to hide a person." Evan stared. Maybe the camera glitched. But he didn't believe that. Neither did she. For the next hour, the forest remained unnervingly still. Mist crawled up the windows in a thin layer, distorting the night outside. Every once in a while, Evan thought he saw movement in the haze, shapes that didn't hold long enough to be recognized. At 1:32 a.m., Mari went to refill her coffee. The cabin creaked as if settling deeper into the earth. Evan leaned back, rubbing his eyes. His radio crackled. He straightened. "Carl, cabin 3 here." Static. Then, Evan, his name, whispered low. The tone was wrong, not the distorted pitch of a malfunctioning radio, not Carl's gravelly voice. This was soft, close, and deliberate. "Evan, come outside." The coffee mug slipped from Mari's hand and shattered. Evan went cold. "Carl, is that you? Over." The voice answered. "Come outside." Mari backed away from the radio. Rule 2, Evan, don't answer." Evan grabbed the radio, clicked the button anyway. "Carl, if this is a joke." "Evan, I'm right outside." He dropped the radio. Both froze. Because from outside the cabin, from beyond the misted glass, they heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, stopping right at the porch. Mari's whisper trembled. "Tell me that's Carl." Evan didn't move. Carl doesn't work nights. The footsteps shifted, closer to the door now. Something brushed against the wood. Mari mouthed, "Don't move." The doorknob twitched. Once. Twice. As if someone was testing it, trying to see if it was locked. The cabin's only source of sound was the pounding of their own hearts. Then, the knob stopped moving. Silence. Followed by a sound that made both of them jerk back. A soft exhale at the door. Not human. Not animal. Something in between. A breath drawn through a throat that didn't know how to breathe right. Mari grabbed Evan's arm, nails digging in. The exhale repeated. Then it spoke again, this time not through the radio, from right behind the door. "Evan?" The voice was his mother's. Evan's blood iced over. The door shook violently. Mari screamed, "Back away from it!" Evan stumbled, crashing into the desk. The monitors rattled, the topmost camera feed flickered, and a face suddenly filled the entire screen. But not a whole face. Too close. Too pale. One eye missing. Teeth exposed in a stretched, wrong smile. The thing on the screen moved its jaw in a jerky, stuttering motion and slammed a hand against the camera lens from the inside. The cabin lights snapped off. Pitch black. Mari gasped, reaching blindly for Evan. Something scraped across the porch outside. Another slam hit the door, harder this time. Evan grabbed Mari's wrist. "The emergency light? Where is it?" I don't know, The scrape outside turned to nails dragging down the wood. Then, sudden silence. Not fading, Not stepping away, just silence. Like whatever stood out there simply stopped existing. Evan reached the emergency switch. He slammed it. A dim red light filled the cabin. The door stood still, no dents, no marks, no sign anything had touched it. Mari whispered, "Evan, the cameras." They spun toward the monitors. Every feed was black, except one. Camera 6, the same tree as before, and behind it, half hidden, was the silhouette again. Only this time, it was smiling. For a long moment, neither Evan nor Mari breathed. The figure on camera 6 didn't move. It didn't shift. It simply held its smile, wide and rigid, as if the muscles of its face were controlled by someone who had never seen a human expression before. Mari backed away from the screen until her shoulders hit the doorframe. "What the hell is that thing?" Evan shook his head, but the answer was already forming. Something he didn't want to speak aloud. "It mimicked my mom's voice," he whispered. He didn't add the rest, and it knew my name. Mari hugged herself, rubbing her arms. "We need to call Carl." Evan grabbed the radio again. "Carl, it's Hale and Vega at Cabin 3. Someone's at the Northern Trail. This isn't a false alarm. Can you hear me?" Over. Static. Then the radio crackled, but no voice came. Just breathing, slow, measured, as if the forest itself was listening through the speaker. Mari slapped her hand over Evan's, forcing him to turn the radio off. "Stop answering it," she hissed. "That isn't Carl." The emergency red light cast shadows across her face, making her look carved out of the dark. Evan suddenly realized how small the cabin was, and how loud the silence outside seemed now that the banging had stopped. Mari moved to the supply shelf. "We're not staying blind all night. I'm checking the breaker." Evan stepped in front of her. "You're not going outside." "The breaker box is attached to the cabin. I won't even be 2 steps off the porch." "Absolutely not. You heard that thing. It knows us. And what? We just sit here in red light hoping nothing else shows up on camera?" They argued quietly, but the forest didn't care. A sharp gust of wind slammed against the side of the cabin like a warning. Mari pulled a flashlight from the drawer. "I'll be quick. Watch the monitors. If anything moves, anything, you call out." "Mari, wait." But she was already at the door. She took a breath, swung it open, and stepped into the cold. The mist swallowed her instantly. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving Evan alone with nothing but the red emergency light and the hum of the monitors. He stared at the screen for camera 6. The silhouette was gone. His pulse jumped. "Mari?" He grabbed the radio, stopped himself. Instead, he opened the door a crack. Cold air rushed in. The fog was thick enough to taste, metallic and faintly sweet, like damp earth after heavy rain. "Mari?" he whispered. A flashlight beam flickered faintly to the right of the cabin. Her voice followed, filtered through the mist. "Found the breaker." Evan exhaled a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He shut the door. 5 seconds later, the cabin lights snapped back to life. Soft, warm, familiar. Evan let himself relax for the first time since midnight. Then his eyes drifted back to the monitors. Camera 3. Camera 4. Camera 6. One by one, each feed blinked back online. Static, image again. Everything looked normal. Except camera 2. Camera 2 showed the side of the cabin, the breaker box, and Mari standing in front of it. Only, her flashlight was off. Her arms hung at her sides, head bowed, completely still. "Mari?" Evan breathed. On screen, her head twitched, not up, but sideways, like something behind her had pulled her gaze. Evan lunged for the door and flung it open. "Mari!" The fog surged into the cabin like a living thing. He stepped onto the porch and froze. Mari was standing by the breaker box exactly as the camera had shown, but she wasn't moving, not even breathing. Her skin looked wrong, too pale, almost gray under the porch light. Evan hurried toward her. "Mari, talk to me. What's—" But when he reached her, she finally inhaled sharply, like someone waking from underwater. Her eyes snapped open. "Evan?" she whispered hoarsely. "Why are you outside? I told you to wait inside." "You weren't answering," he said, heart pounding. "You were frozen. You didn't move." "What? No, I was just flipping the breaker." "You stood still for almost a full minute." Mari frowned. "A minute? Evan, I swear I wasn't out here for more than 10 seconds. He stepped back. "I watched you on the camera." Mari stiffened. "The cameras are glitching. You saw that thing earlier. Maybe it's messing with the feed." Evan didn't say it, but a deeper fear settled in his chest. It wasn't the camera malfunctioning. Something else was. Back inside, they shut the door and locked it, Carl's rules suddenly feeling too flimsy, too thin. As Mari paced, Evan replayed the footage from camera 2. Mari watched over his shoulder. On screen, she appeared again, standing motionless, head down, frozen like a statue in the mist. "That's not me," Mari muttered. "It looks exactly like you." "No, Evan, I didn't do that. That isn't me." The way she said it, sharp, defensive, made him look at her more closely. Something about her felt off. Her breathing was too quick, her pupils too dilated. A faint tremor ran through her hands. Evan swallowed. "What happened out there?" Mari turned away. "Nothing." "Don't lie, you froze for a whole minute." "I didn't." Her voice broke. She clenched her jaw. "Evan, I heard something." Evan felt the hairs on his arms rise. "What did you hear?" Mari didn't look at him. "It whispered behind me," she said quietly. "But it wasn't your name this time." "What did it say?" Her answer came out like a confession. It said, "She's not alone." Evan shivered. Mari's hands tightened into fists. "And Evan, when I turned around," she hesitated. "There was something in the fog, but it wasn't shaped like a person." Evan didn't want to ask. He did anyway. "What shape?" Mari looked up at him, eyes wide with fear. "Wrong," she whispered. "It was the shape of something that was trying to be human, but it didn't know how." 2:18 a.m. The air in the cabin felt heavier. The emergency light was off, but the normal lights buzzed faintly, like they were struggling to hold themselves on. Evan watched the cameras. Mari sat at the desk, not talking, rubbing her palms together. Neither wanted to say it, but both were thinking the same thing. The forest wasn't done with them, not even close. A sudden thud hit the roof, then another. Mari shot to her feet. "What was that?" Evan listened. A third thud. Slow, methodical, as if something was crawling across the roof with deliberate weight. They backed toward the center of the room. "Should we radio Carl?" Mari whispered. Evan didn't answer, because the radio turned on by itself. Static filled the cabin. Then, "Mari." Her knees nearly buckled. The voice continued. "Tell him the truth." Evan's eyes snapped to her. "What truth?" Mari shook her head violently. "It's not real. It's not real. It doesn't know anything." The voice hissed. "Tell him what you saw." "Mari?" Evan stepped closer. "What is it talking about?" She backed away from him, shaking. "I didn't see anything else. I told you what I saw. I swear I—" The silhouette appeared on camera 6 again, but this time it wasn't alone. A second shape stood beside it. Not quite a mirror image, not quite human. A shape with long, unnatural limbs and a face that looked stitched together by shadow. They moved closer to the camera, in perfect sync. Mari whispered, "Evan, turn it off." He didn't, because something was wrong with the cabin. The air chilled instantly, so cold Evan could see his breath. And Mari backed farther away from him, eyes fixed on the camera. "Evan," she whispered, voice trembling, "the one on the right, it looks like." He turned. "Me." Evan stared. The figure's shape was wrong, but its posture, the tilt of the head, the slope of the shoulders, it mimicked Mari. Perfectly. Mari stumbled backward. "Evan, that's not me. You believe me, right?" Evan stepped toward her, but froze, because something was missing. Mari had left the cabin for less than a minute, but the footage showed her gone for much longer. Much, much longer. "Mari," Evan whispered, "how long were you outside?" "I told you, 10 seconds, maybe 15. Why?" Evan swallowed hard. "Mari, camera footage shows you were gone for 6 minutes." Everything went dead silent. Mari stared at him as if he had struck her. "What? No, that's impossible. I wasn't. Evan, I wasn't gone." Evan stepped back, fear sliding cold into his blood. "What happened in those 6 minutes? I said I wasn't gone." Her scream echoed off the cabin walls. For the first time, Evan felt a different fear, not of the forest, but of Mari. She stared at him, chest heaving, eyes too wide, like she was suddenly terrified of him. "You think it got to me," she said softly. "You think I'm lying." "Mari, I didn't say, you think I'm not me." Evan opened his mouth, but the roof above them groaned deeply as something enormous, something heavy crawled directly above their heads. The radio clicked on again. "She's not alone." Mari's breath hitched. The voice changed, warping into something deeper, layered, almost plural. "And neither are you." The cabin lights blew out. The cameras died. And for one terrifying heartbeat, in the darkness between the flicker of the failing bulbs, Evan was certain he saw 2 silhouettes inside the cabin with them. The forest was different after 3 a.m. Not darker, not quieter, just aware. Evan felt it first. The way the trees seemed to lean inward as if trying to hear his breath. The way the mist didn't float but waited, hovering low, dense, deliberate. He moved through the narrow maintenance trail with his flashlight sweeping over roots and moss, the beam slicing through pockets of vapor that recoiled from the light like something alive. He kept replaying the moment Marisol vanished. One blink, one turn of his head, and she was gone as if the woods had taken a deep breath and swallowed her whole. He reached the old staircase. The rangers called it the Forest Stair, a long wooden descent into one of the older ravines, built before the park was ever public. Most rangers avoided it at night. Some refused to even log it on patrol reports. Tonight, the staircase looked worse. The wood, usually damp and dark, now gleamed faintly as if coated in a film of something slick, something that reflected light like an eye. He shined the flashlight downward. Something moved between the slats, a shadow, longer than it should be, stretched in a way no living body could stretch. It slithered deeper into the ravine. Evan swallowed hard. He lifted his radio, voice low. Vega. If you hear me, answer. Static. Static that almost sounded like breathing. He lowered the radio. Marisol wasn't here, except part of him felt she was. Felt she was close, watching him the way the trees watched, the way the mist breathed, the way something under the staircase had just moved. He stepped back, unwilling to descend. Branches shifted behind him. He spun fast. His flashlight hit something human-shaped standing among the pines, tall, still, facing him. Marisol? No answer. The figure stepped forward. Evan exhaled with relief. It was Marisol. Same jacket, same boots, same stance, but something in the way she carried her shoulders, the angle of her chin. Not wrong, but off, as if someone else were wearing her shaped precisely. You? Okay? Evan asked carefully. She didn't answer. She stepped closer until the beam lit her face. That was when Evan saw it. Her pupils were blown wide, swallowing nearly all the color. Her hair, slightly damp, clung to her face as if she'd been standing in heavy fog. But the worst part? Her expression was empty, not tired, not shaken. Empty, the way a mask is empty until someone decides how to move it. Where were you? He asked. A pause. Then she forced a smile. I told you, right behind you. You weren't. Maybe you didn't see me. Her tone was flat, emotionless, but also accusing. Evan's jaw tightened. What happened to you? What happened to you, Hale? She stepped into his light fully, and he saw something on her fingers, dirt packed beneath the nails, dark and damp like she'd clawed her way out of the ground, or into something. He pointed toward the staircase. Did you go down there? Her head tilted slowly, unnaturally. Would you be upset if I said yes? Marisol, I'm serious. So am I. The wind shifted, carrying with it the scent of soil, wet bark, and something metallic. Blood? He couldn't tell. They stared at each other, strangers wearing familiar faces. Then Marisol blinked hard, shaking her head like coming out of a trance. Sorry, I think I blacked out. For 30 minutes? I don't know. Her voice trembled. Maybe. Her legs weakened. Evan rushed to steady her, but as soon as his hand touched her arm, she jerked back violently, eyes wide in fear. Don't touch me! He froze. What's going on? Marisol hugged herself, stepping away as if he were dangerous. I don't know where I went. I remember hearing you call my name. I tried to respond, but her voice cracked. Something else responded instead. Before he could ask, she turned sharply toward the woods behind him. Did you hear that? Hear what? She pointed. Between the cedars, a shape moved, gliding parallel to them. A tall shape. Human-shaped. Matching her silhouette perfectly. Evan felt the bottom of his stomach drop. The shape froze. Then, in one sudden twitching motion, it snapped its head toward them. Flashlight glare hit a pale, stretched face. Not her face, not anyone's face. And in the second the light reached it, the shape vanished. Evan reeled back. Marisol whispered, "It followed me." Then we're going back to the cabin. Now. She hesitated, hugging herself tighter. Evan, do you think it looked like me? Or did I look like it? He grabbed her arm, not roughly but firmly. We're not doing this out here. Move. And though she stepped forward, Evan noticed her feet drag on the soil in a strange pattern, almost like someone discovering how legs worked. Almost like she was learning to walk again. The walk back. They didn't speak as they made their way toward Cabin 3. The forest seemed to close in behind them, swallowing their tracks. Every few minutes, Evan checked his radio. Static. Always static. At one point, Marisol whispered, "Don't you think the fog is getting thicker?" He did. The mist crawled across the ground faster than wind should carry it, swirling around tree roots like it was searching for a way upward. searching for them. Then Marisol froze. Footsteps. Evan listened. Behind them, soft, deliberate, multiple sets, as if something was trying to mimic the cadence of human feet but couldn't get the rhythm right. Evan grabbed her wrist. Don't turn around. But don't. They kept walking. The footsteps followed. Slower, closer, learning. When Cabin 3 finally came into view, its yellow porch light flickered like a dying candle. They reached the steps. Evan reached for the door. Thud! Something slammed into the tree line behind them. Marisol spun despite his warning. Her breath caught in her throat. Evan turned too. There, at the edge where the forest met clearing, stood two shapes, both shaped like Marisol, both standing perfectly still, both watching. Evan unlocked the door with shaking hands, shoved Marisol inside, and slammed it shut behind them. For a moment, neither moved. Then, a face pressed against the window. Wrong. Distorted, smiling too wide with no lips. Marisol screamed. The face snapped back into the fog as if yanked away by invisible hands. The radio crackled suddenly. A voice, faint and distorted, whispered, "Inside? Yet?" Evan's skin crawled. That wasn't human. And worse, it sounded halfway between his voice and Marisol's. Seemed to press inward as if trying to hear what the Rangers whispered to one another. The mist wasn't drifting anymore. It was waiting, suspended between the trees like something holding its breath. Inside Cabin 3, Evan stood with his back against the door, one hand gripping the flashlight so tightly the rubber casing squeaked. Across the room, Marisol knelt by the map table, her eyes scanning the marked zones again and again, as if repetition would suddenly reveal a hidden detail. Both of them tried to breathe quietly so the other wouldn't hear the tremor in their chests. A long silence stretched. Evan finally spoke. "Where did you go tonight, Marisol?" She didn't answer. Her eyes flicked toward him, small, fast, defensive. He noticed. She noticed him noticing. The trust between them snapped like a dry twig. Evan swallowed. "Look, we both know something's wrong out there. And Marisol cut him off. Her voice firmer than he expected. "You disappeared first, Evan. Don't act like you've got nothing to explain." "I didn't disappear." "Yes, you did, for exactly 7 minutes." His heart stuttered. She shouldn't know the exact number of minutes. He hadn't told her. He never even checked his watch. "How?" he whispered. "Do you know that?" The air in the cabin thickened. Outside, the woods exhaled, a slow, deep breath, like something settling into a nest. Marisol stared at him for a long moment. Too long. Then she finally blinked, and something in her posture softened. "I heard Turner say it," she said. "On the radio." Evan's stomach twisted. Turner hadn't been on the radio all night. Not the real Turner. She saw the realization hit him and immediately lifted her hands, palms outward. "Evan, don't look at me like that." "Like what?" he breathed. "Like you think I'm not me." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The wind scraped along the cabin walls like claws dragging across old wood. A cold draft leaked under the doorframe, sweeping dust in a slow, spiraling pattern across the floor, like the forest was drawing something. A shape, a circle, a boundary. Evan stepped away from it instinctively. The radio wakes. The radio crackled behind them. They both froze. Neither turned around. The static stretched long and hungry, then melted into a voice, barely above a whisper. "Evan, Marisol." Turner's voice, but Turner's voice from underwater. Wet, warped, heavy. They still didn't turn. The voice rose, sharpening at the edges. "Why were you two running?" Marisol's breath hitched. Evan's knuckles whitened around the flashlight. The voice changed, becoming thinner, stretched, as if someone were pulling it apart. Where are the other bodies? Evan spun around and slapped the radio off the table. It hit the floor hard, metal casing cracking, battery clattering across the boards. But the voice kept talking. "Which one of you is the copy?" The cabin lights flickered. The windows went black, not dark, black, like something pressed its face against every pane at once. Evan backed toward Marisol. Marisol backed toward Evan. Neither wanted to touch the other. Both wanted the other close. Fear made them orbit each other like two moons circling a dying star. Another voice emerged from the radio shards on the floor. Marisol's voice. "Evan, the moment you turned your back, you weren't alone anymore." Evan's pulse hammered in his skull. And then another voice chimed in, overlapping hers, his own. "Marisol, you came back wrong." They stared at the shattered radio, horrified, as the two voices tangled and twisted into a single whisper. "Only one of you gets to leave." The lights went out. The cabin drowned in darkness. The scratching at the door. Something pressed on the cabin deck outside. A slow, careful wait. Another step. Another. Evan and Marisol backed toward the table. The darkness moved against the windows. Something brushing, dragging, tracing long lines across the glass. A murmur. A thrum. A pulse. Something was learning how to knock. A shadow shifted on the porch. The door creaked. One hinge flexed. Then, knock. A single sharp strike, as if something just learned the word for knock and wanted to test its meaning. Then again. Knock. 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 Marisol whispered without looking at him. That's not how anything human knocks. Evan's throat tightened. The knock stopped. Silence swallowed the cabin. Then a new sound started above them. Slow footsteps moving across the cabin roof. Measured. Heavy. Listening. The boards overhead creaked as something crawled across the beams. Evan pointed toward the bedroom. Flashlights. Backup batteries. Marisol nodded. They moved together, cautious, silent, until they reached the bedroom door. Evan grabbed the handle. Just as he pushed it open, a face appeared in the window behind Marisol. A face that looked almost like Evan, but the eyes were too far apart, the mouth too wide, the expression too eager. Marisol didn't see it, but Evan did. He grabbed her shoulder and yanked her into the bedroom, just as the glass buckled inward with a shuddering, eager chirp, a sound no human throat could make. The circle of deer. Inside the bedroom, the backup flashlights lay scattered on the bed, right where they left them, except Marisol lifted one and froze. Blood dried across the handle. Evan checked another. Same thing. Third. Same thing. Marisol swallowed hard. This isn't ours. The flashlight batteries rolled on the floor, forming a loose ring shape. A ritual circle, a warning, or a path. Evan didn't want to ask. Marisol didn't want to know. The cabin ceiling creaked again. Whatever crawled above them was repositioning itself, directly over the bedroom. Evan pointed at the window. We go now, out the back. Marisol nodded, but then her eyes widened. Evan, look outside. He turned. The backyard clearing glowed faintly under the moon. And in the clearing, a perfect circle of deer. Dozens of them, standing dead still, all facing the cabin. Their necks twisted too far, all in the same unnatural angle, as if the forest bent them into a new shape. A single deer stepped forward. Its jaw hung loose, barely attached. Its chest moved like lungs were pumping, even though they clearly weren't. Then, from somewhere deep inside that broken skull, a distorted, airy voice crept out. Marisol, come home! She stumbled backward. No, Evan whispered. Oh God, no, they're copying voices now? The deer spoke again. Evan, follow. Its legs twitched, its shoulder bulged, as if something inside was trying to escape its skin. Then, all the deer turned in unison and stared directly at Evan. Not at Marisol. Evan. His lungs seized. Marisol grabbed his arm. We run. Now? They didn't look back at the circle of deer. They didn't look back at the cabin. They crashed into the tree line. The bleeding trail. The trail ahead glowed faintly. Not with light, with wetness. A smear of dark red streaked across the ground like something huge had been dragged through the forest. Marisol whispered, Evan, is that blood? He knelt, touched it with one trembling finger. Warm. Too warm. He jerked his hand away. Marisol shivered. Why is it fresh? Nothing bleeds this much without. Behind them, something moved. Heavy, slow, something with weight but no rhythm, like muscle that wasn't designed for walking. Evan grabbed her wrist. Run! They sprinted down the blood-soaked trail. Branches clawed at their arms. Every shadow leaned toward them. Every echo felt like it belonged to someone else. Halfway down the hill, Marisol stopped dead. She pointed at the ground. Evan's heart froze. There, smeared in the blood, was a boot print. Not an animal, a human boot print. Size 11, Evan's size, and next to it, a second boot print, smaller, Marisol's. But the stride between the prints was wrong, too long, too heavy, and staggered like the person wearing them didn't understand how legs worked. Marisol whispered, Evan, that's us. But we didn't walk this path. Evan took a shaky breath. And that's when he saw it. A third set of prints, bare feet, small, childlike, walking between theirs, perfectly placed. One bare footprint inside each of their prints, as if a child were learning to walk by stepping inside their shadows. Marisol choked on her breath. There's something walking with us. Evan shook his head slowly. No, something is walking as us. A whisper drifted from behind them. Soft, close, too close. Found you, Evan spun. A figure stood between the trees. Marisol gasped. It was Evan. A second Evan, but not like the one at the cabin. This one was refined. more accurate, more complete. The eyes blinked naturally. The shoulders rose with breath that seemed real. This version understood how to be human. Almost. It stepped forward, moving with fluid mimicry. Marisol backed away. Evan, it's getting better. It's learning. The copy tilted its head, and then, with a wet, cracking sound, it opened its mouth and spoke in Evan's exact voice. Marisol, that one behind you isn't me. Evan froze. Marisol froze. The forest went deathly quiet. Two Evan voices, one in front of her, one behind her. Marisol, the real Evan whispered, "Don't listen." Marisol, the other Evan said, "He doesn't blink enough when he lies." She turned slowly, terrified to see which version flinched. Neither did. Both Evans stepped toward her, slow, careful, hungry. Marisol raised her flashlight like a weapon. "Stay back." Both Evans lifted their hands in the exact same motion. "Marisol," they said together. "Choose." The real Evan felt something ice-cold slide down his spine, because he suddenly realized he wasn't sure if he was the real one. Not anymore. Not after the blackout. Not after the missing minutes. Not after the voice mimicked him perfectly. Marisol's breath shook. "Evan, tell me something only you know." The two Evans exchanged a look, perfectly mirrored, and both spoke at the same time. "Turner never told you everything." Marisol's face drained of color, because that was true. Turner had told her something secretly earlier that night, and Evan, real Evan, should not know it, which meant either both were fake or both were real, or the forest knew their memories now. Evan whispered, horrified, "It's inside us." The copy smiled. Then the real Evan, or the one who believed he was real, felt a stabbing pain in his skull. A flicker of static behind his eyes, a noise like a memory being rewritten. He gasped. Marisol saw it. She stepped back from him. Not from the copy, from him. "Evan," she whispered. He couldn't breathe. The woods leaned in. The copy leaned in. Marisol raised the flashlight, torn between the two, and the copy said softly, gently, with perfect human cadence, "Let me show you which one of us is real." It stepped closer. Marisol stepped toward it. Evan tried to shout no, but his voice didn't come out. It wasn't his voice anymore. The copy reached out and placed a hand on Marisol's cheek. Its skin was warm. Human. Too human. Marisol's breath hitched. Evan lunged forward, but the copy whispered, "You should have stayed in the cabin, Evan." And the forest swallowed his scream. The forest was too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that felt engineered, arranged, as if something had deliberately pulled every sound out of the world. Evan and Marisol stood beside Crimson Pond again, the fog so thick it looked poured, not formed. The surface of the water was still red, still wrong, but now it pulsed faintly, like something alive resting beneath. Their boots sank slightly into the mud. Neither spoke because neither trusted the sound of their own voice anymore. Marisol hugged her jacket tighter. Evan didn't move. They weren't sure how long they'd been walking, or if they were walking in circles, or if the trees were moving around them. The forest no longer followed rules humans understood. But they knew one thing. Turner wasn't coming, and he wasn't going to save them. He was gone, or the thing wearing him was. Evan finally broke the silence. "We're not getting out, are we?" Marisol didn't answer. Instead, she stared at the other side of the pond, where a tree, massive and old, leaned over the water. Its trunk was split open, and something inside glistened, wet, pink, almost like the interior of an animal's ribcage. Both of them remembered. That tree hadn't been there earlier. "Evan," Mari whispered, "do you feel it? Like the forest is waiting for us to do something." Evan swallowed. "It wants us to pick." "Pick what?" He didn't answer, because the truth was, he didn't know. He only felt the pressure, like standing at a crossroads where neither path was real. Then he heard it, a rustle. Soft, familiar. Mari tensed. "Don't move." From the fog to their right, a figure stumbled out. A human shape. Slow, unsteady. Evan's breath hitched. It was him. Evan, or a version of him, clothes torn, eyes hollow, moving like a puppet whose strings tangled. Marisol grabbed Evan's arm, the Evan beside her, almost violently. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Was it chasing you? The real you?" But Evan didn't answer, because to his left, from the fog, another Marisol stepped out. Face blank, skin pale, hair dripping like she'd been pulled from the pond. The real Marisol froze. The real Evan froze. Two pairs of eyes stared at two versions of themselves. The forest didn't fake them, didn't disguise their voices, didn't distort their forms. These weren't illusions. They were duplicates, copies. In progress, not perfect, not yet, but enough to steal the breath from their lungs. The other Evan opened his mouth. Something cracked inside his throat. Hell, that was all it managed before convulsing like a broken machine. The other Marisol tilted her head too far for a human neck, spine creaking like branches frozen in winter. Evan whispered, Mari, I don't think those are copies. What do you mean? She whispered back. I think, his voice weakened. I think that's what we become. The fog trembled like something enormous exhaled through it. And then the screaming started. Not loud, muffled, buried, as if coming from underwater or from behind miles of earth. It wasn't the copies screaming. It was something deeper. Something that had been here long before the forest was a forest. Something hungry. The ground vibrated, a low tremor passing through their boots. Mari, run, Evan said. But she didn't move. Because behind them, from the direction they had come, Turner stepped out of the fog. His uniform was soaked. His boots left dark red prints behind him. His breathing was wrong, shallow, like he didn't need air but tried anyway out of habit. And his eyes weren't his. They reflected the pond's surface, that same red shimmer. Marisol stepped back. Turner? He smiled gently. Too gently. You weren't supposed to see this, he said softly. Not yet. Evan raised his flashlight, hand shaking. What did you do to the people who went missing? He demanded. Turner's answer was a whisper, but the forest carried it perfectly. I didn't do anything, he said. The forest keeps what it needs. He pointed at the split tree. And it's keeping you. The duplicates, the half-made Evan and half-made Marisol, turned toward the real pair. Their movements synchronized, puppet-like, as if pulled by the same invisible string. Evan grabbed Marisol's hand. Move, now! They ran, but the forest ran with them. Branches closed in. Roots shifted under their boots. The fog thickened, sculpting shapes that weren't human, but nearly were. Whispers circled them like insects. Marisol tripped. Evan caught her. But when she looked up, something was wrong. Evan's face flickered. Just a second. Barely noticeable. But his left eye changed, only for a blink. Evan? She gasped. Her hand recoiled. He didn't notice. Behind them, the duplicates gave chase, but slowly, almost playfully, as if the forest wanted the fear to simmer, not boil over yet. They reached the ridge, the broken forest stairs, the spot where the first disappearance happened in 1997. Marisol looked back. Turner wasn't following. He didn't need to. This place already belonged to him. No, not him. Whatever lived in him. Evan, she panted, when you disappeared earlier, what happened? Where did you go? He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because the truth clawed at the inside of his skull. A memory he didn't want, a voice that wasn't his. A moment he didn't understand. He had been standing in the fog, and then he wasn't. He had heard Marisol calling him, but she sounded far away, and also very close, and also like something else. He remembered hands made of fog pressing against his face, something warm dripping into his mouth, a heartbeat that wasn't his entering his chest. He remembered dying, or being born, or being rewritten. He remembered everything and nothing, and he remembered this. He never walked out of the fog on his own. Something returned him, something that wanted to see what he would do next. Mari watched him, fear growing. Evan, did something follow you out? He didn't answer, and the silence was enough. She stepped away from him. He reached for her wrist. Mari, wait. And for a split second, his fingers looked wrong. Too many joints, too smooth, like the forest was still shaping him. Marisol backed away. The trust between them, built carefully through terror, cracked. Behind them, the duplicates reached the top of the ridge and stopped. They didn't chase anymore. They simply stood there, watching, waiting. Evan realized the truth. They're not coming closer, he whispered. They're waiting to see which one of us the forest chooses. Marisol's breath fogged in front of her lips. So it's copying us, to replace us? Evan shook his head slowly. No, it's copying us because it already took the real ones. Marisol stepped back. Evan continued, voice trembling. What if we're the duplicates, Mary? The forest listened. The fog tightened. Marisol's eyes filled with confusion, fear, and a terrible understanding. Evan, stop. Please stop. He kept going. We don't know how long we were missing. We keep losing time. You went missing twice. I went missing once. We hear radio voices that sound like us. Why do you think the ranger roster has blacked out sections? Why do you think the forest was closed in 1997? Because everyone who went missing, the forest pulsed, came back wrong. Marisol felt her heartbeat slow, then speed up, then slow again, unnaturally, like someone else was controlling it. The wind shifted, and her voice whispered behind her, "You didn't come back at all." She spun. The duplicate Marisol stood inches away, skin pale, hair dripping. "Smile too soft." Evan lunged for her. "Mari, move!" But the ground cracked between them, splitting open like a dark mouth. Roots surged up, separating them. Marisol fell back. Her head hit the soil. Her vision blurred. When she looked up, there were two Evans standing over her now. One with fear in his eyes, one with nothing in them. Which one reached for her? Which one whispered her name? Which one had walked out of the fog earlier that night? She didn't know. She couldn't know. And the forest didn't want her to know, because that was the point. The duplicates stepped closer. The real ones stepped back. Or maybe the other way around. The fog swallowed their legs first, then their torsos, then their faces, and the forest grew quiet again. By morning, the rangers sent to relieve the night shift found the cabin empty. The lights were still on. The monitors still recorded. One of the radios was still humming softly. At 10:23 a.m., a static pulse broke through. A voice whispered through it. A woman's voice. Calm. Even. Almost ranger-like. "Copy that. We're still on patrol." The team froze. Another voice joined her. A man's voice. Familiar. Too familiar. "Forest is clear. Nothing unusual to report." Then silence. The kind that isn't empty, but full. One ranger swallowed. "Who was that? Turner?" "No," another whispered. "Turner's signal was disconnected last night." They played the recording again. Two voices, perfectly calm. One male, one female. The technician replayed it a third time after removing the static. And that's when every ranger in the cabin went pale, because when the static dissolved, what remained in the background wasn't forest noise. It was breathing. 4 of them, too calm. Too frantic, all overlapping, as if 4 people were standing in the same spot, sharing the same air. The recording ended. The forest stayed quiet. Elfin National Forest reopened that afternoon. The official report said 2 rookie rangers quit without notice. Turner's disappearance was classified. Cabin 12 was sealed again. And Crimson Pond remained still. But some visitors swear that if you stand near it at dusk, you might see 2 silhouettes reflected on the surface of the red water. Sometimes they talk. Sometimes they wave. Sometimes they call your name, even if you never told them. And sometimes, on rare nights, one of them steps out of the fog and walks toward the trail like they've been waiting for you all along.